one of the biggest rabbi that we had in our days, passed away. Rabbi Gershon Edelstein. He passed away at the age of 100. Baruch Hashem, I was zucheh last summer, to be with him. I took the kids. It was beautiful. And thank you. And somebody said something very interesting. He said there was not one question, one topic in the Shas that was asked to the rabbi, and he was not familiar. Not only was not familiar, he was knowing exactly what's the right answer. Was a person that throughout over 70 years, he didn't change the routine of his daily routine. Every single day, he was doing the same exact things for 70 years. Guess what? When he was in the hospital, he was a couple of days in the hospital, since Shavuot, he was still giving shiurim in the hospital. 100 years old. You see the picture, the rabbi with some oxygen, giving the shiurim inside his room. The last day, the day that he passed away, that morning he passed away, I believe was in the afternoon, late afternoon. That morning, he was sitting down, preparing his shiur. Writing a little bit, whatever he was able to write. 100 years old. But somebody said something unbelievable. He said, there is a sefer called, written by Rabbi Chaim Volozhin. Rabbi Chaim Volozhin was one of the greatest tzaddikim around 600 years ago. Yeah. And this rabbi said like this. He said, how it's possible for a human being to get Torah in a level that all these Torah will be remembered and it will be absorbed inside his head. How is that possible? Whoever learns Torah understands that Torah has no limits, no ends. How can you remember so much Torah? I remember when I was in Israel, and we had to do the tests for the Rabbanut. The tests were very hard, very hard. Why? You have to remember all the Gemarot, all the Rishonim, all the Shulchan Aruch Ramah, and I can tell you more names and you're not going to be familiar with, okay? And everything in one test. And that was only one topic. So says Rabbi Chaim Volozhin, how it's possible to get Torah in a way that all what you learn will be absorbed in your head and it will remain there. And he says that the only way to absorb Torah, is at the moment that a person is using the midah of Anavá. Being humble is the only way to get Torah. And he says, where do we learn it from? Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu, maybe he was not the smartest. Maybe there were other people that were much smarter than Moshe Rabbeinu. But the only one that had the privilege to become the one who got the Torah, and it's called Torah Moshe Avdi, the Torah is called by Moshe Rabbeinu, it's only because he was humble. And he says, why? You take a recipient, a cup. More thick is the cup, less space he has. More thin is the cup, okay, more space he can, more water he can get. Correct? It's the same thing. A person is a recipient. More thick, which means you're putting yourself, there is more area that there is yourself in your life, less possibility there is to fill it up with water. More refined you become, less important you look at yourself. You understand that everything is from above. Then your recipient is having a very thin edge. And then you can get much more water. He says that the rabbi, they said that one of his students one of his closest students. So they ask him, "Can you tell us a story about the Rabbi that he passed away?" He says, "I want to tell you. I have many stories, but I want to tell you my first story when I met the Rabbi. When I met the Rabbi used to be Rosh Yeshiva of the Yeshiva of Ponovich in Bnei Brak. He says, I was a young boy, 17 years old, and I entered to that yeshiva first time in my life. I sit down, and I wanted to, to get involved with the rabbis of the yeshiva. So how do you get involved with the rabbis of the yeshiva? You're going to talk to them with Torah learning. So obviously I was learning the whole sugya, the whole topic. And then I found one of the commentaries that it was bringing something fantastic, and the name of the commentary was Ksot HaChoshen. Whoever heard this name before, the Ksot HaChoshen is a very deep book in Gemara. I found this Ksot HaChoshen, and I decided, I'm gonna make with this Ksot HaChoshen, I'm gonna go all over. So he went to this rabbi and to the other rabbi. So he decided the first one is going to be Rabbi Edelstein. He approached Rabbi Edelstein and he tells him, Rabbi, you don't know what I found. Treasure. I found a Ksot HaChoshen. So the rabbi said, really? Show it to me. So the boy runs and he brings the book and he opens up the book and the rabbi reads, and then you see the rabbi with such an enthusiasm and such a, wow, beautiful chidush, and he starts going back and forth, talking according to that Ksot HaChoshen, how to explain all the sugya and the Gemara and the Tosafot and this and that. And the other student was also in fire. And then the rabbi said, I have to thank you. Thank you so much for showing me this Ksot HaChoshen. The boy goes out, he's the boss. He's the man. He made the rabbi realize that there is such a Ksot HaChoshen. A baby, 17 years old, is approaching the rabbi that was back then at the age of 80. Okay, he was so happy, proud of himself. He said, that was in the morning. In the afternoon, he was sitting with his havruta, and they were learning. And then he tells the Havruta, you have no clue what a Ksot HaChoshen I found to Rabbi Edelstein. So, no, what is it? So he opened up the Ksot and he explained to him and he says, you're kidding me? It has been already a week that the rabbi is giving a class on this Ksot HaChoshen. Where were you? A week! A week the rabbi is already using that particular Ksot to give his shiurim. And the guy said, then I started to know who was Rabbi Edelstein. The Chazon Ish was the Gadol Ador. When Am Yisrael came out from the Holocaust, he was the Gadol Ador in Eretz Yisrael. The Chazon Ish was a genius. The Chazon Ish said about Rabbi Edelstein, who was back then 33 years old. He said, this Talmid Chacham has a problem. This Rabbi Edelstein, has a big problem. What's the problem? The Gemara says that every Talmid Chacham has to have an eighth of Gava. Sheminit sheba sheminit. This Rabbi doesn't have it. This Talmid Chacham, Rabbi Edelstein, has absolutely no Gava whatsoever. And my dear friends, whenever you don't have Gava, so all what there is only godliness. All what there is only Kedusha. I remember a couple of years ago, and yesterday I found a picture in my house. A couple of years ago, I think it was 5 years ago. The rabbi was 95 years old. I was in Israel, and somebody told me, let's go to Bnei Brak to see the Gdolim. I said, yalla, let's go. So, every rabbi that he wanted to enter, it's a whole protocol. You have the people, and the rabbi is busy, and this. I come to the house of Rabbi Edelstein, and not too many questions. You just knock at the door, you open up the door, and you enter, and you see the rabbi, 95 years old, approaching you with a huge smile. He doesn't even know you. First time that he sees you, and he starts asking you, "Where are you from? And who are you? What are you doing?" Like he has nothing else what to do besides knowing and trying to care about your feelings. My dear friends, whenever a person takes away his ego, takes away himself from the center, automatically is giving room to HaKadosh Baruch Hu to enter. And when Borei Olam enters, he stays there. That was a great rabbi, Rabbi Edelstein, Zecher Tzadik Livrecha. He was a recipient without age. He was a recipient with no limits. We lost it. But Chachamim are saying, every time that we lose a Chacham, his midot are in the air. And every person, especially at the Shiv'ah, at the beginning of the passing, is able to decide to grab one of these midot, and Borei Olam gives him siyata dishmaya, a special help that this midah he will be able to succeed. So I think it's in our hands to decide, something. If the Talmid Chacham can have an eighth of Ga'ava, I think that us, we can have an eighth of Anavá. And to have a little bit of Anavá, extra Anavá, to add it, and B'ezrat Hashem, that will be a zechut for the rabbi, but at the same time, that will be Melitz Yosher on us, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will have Rachamim on us, and B'ezrat Hashem we will see the final redemption very, very soon. B'Menachem, Amen. Rabbi Hananel ben Akashar, Meratzai, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Le'Azancotat Israel. Lefichach,